let me tell you a tale of corporate woe. So, a few years ago, a little while now, Hasbro, large toy company, got a new CEO. Now, Hasbro's products mostly don't make a ton of money. They probably run into a wall where they make toys and board games and things. There's only so many times you can persuade the average family to buy different IP remixes of Monopoly. So, they're struggling a little bit, but they have one massive money spinner that basically pulls all the weight, and that is Wizards of the Coast, a company that makes Magic the Gathering and Duel Masters and is owned by Hasbro. The new CEO, I think his name is Chris Cox, you may laugh, wanted to improve, among other things, Hasbro's digital offerings. And so he started the process of working on, I believe he started this, I don't have any insight into the insides of Hasbro's corporate structure, but I think there was a push for making digital products that started with him and resulted in several proposed video games for Magic. Now, Magic has always had an online, Magic has had an online version called Magic Online for a long time. Moto is maybe 10 years, 15 years old even. It's a pretty aged application at this point, and it shows it, right? It's got it's not very player-friendly UI. It's not free. You have to buy the cards exactly the same way you do with physical Magic cards. It has its own economy and everything. And the user interface is pretty... It's a relatively austere reflection of real Magic. You drag cards onto the tabletop and they are represented as they would be. The game implements the rules, but it doesn't add any flashy animations or anything like that. It is, you move your cards around the way you would in real life, and any and all animation and personality happens in your head. Again, the same way as you play the real game. So among other things, I guess they wanted to make free-to-play Magic a thing, right? To catch up with the state of the industry since, because obviously Hearthstone came out, and then a bunch of other games came out in the mold of Hearthstone. And so they made Magic Arena, which is Magic the Gathering, but free-ish, with a relatively limited set of cards. Magic Online has most cards on it. Arena has only basically the sets since it came out, or non-supplemental sets. It has some subset of the products that exist. Arena is pretty popular, but I think not because it deserves it. It's a bit of a awkward application to use. Like, the monetization is quite harsh, especially if you like me, you're a limited player. You like to draft and play sealed. It's very difficult to do that without having to grind. Similar to how it is in Hearthstone if you're not very good at Arena. Hearthstone's Arena mode. Or in Duelist, but you can learn to be very consistent at Gauntlet. But in Arena, Magic Arena, it's more expensive and more difficult to earn your money back. Besides that, the process of acquiring decks and changing decks for Constructed is quite arduous as well. If you play a lot, and a lot of Magic players do, because Magic players love Magic, it works out okay. But it's a difficult game to dip your toe into. But Arena wasn't the only thing that Hasbro wanted to make, and they also made, among other things, a game called Magic Legends, which was a kind of Diablo-esque MMO, with a top-down action RPG thing, where you could build a deck, and your deck would be full of spells that you could cast in this action game framework. Magic Legends didn't last very long, and the problem with it was that it was rubbish. Like, I played it, and it was just an incredibly bland and unsatisfying experience with, basically almost no redeeming qualities. Like, it was a train wreck. And I think that experience may have soured or scared them a little bit, plus the amount of pushback they've gotten from the community over Arena over the years. And so when their most recent digital title launched, they didn't even announce it. This is Magic Spellslingers. It is a game you probably have not heard of. I know about it because I follow some people on Twitter who worked on this game like 5 years ago and have since quit Wizards of the Coast. But when the game released, they were like, okay, I made this thing. I can tell you about it now. when the game launched, the official Spellslingers Twitter account had 2 posts. One of which was from 2020 saying, "Hey, we're making Spellslingers," and then another one from about launch day being like, "Oh yeah, this came out, I guess." The game is released with almost no fanfare, no promotion, nothing. Which is baffling to me because it's good. It's surprisingly good. I've been playing it a fair bit recently. It's compelled me, and I feel like it has a lot of potential. So what this game is a kind of it's Hearthstone magic, I guess, but with enough of its own unique twists that it does feel like a worthwhile novel experience. A lot of games have tried to do the things that Magic does, but in an online setting. Right? Hearthstone stripped out all of the things that made let me try that again. Hearthstone stripped out a lot of stuff that is very special about Magic in order to make for a faster online experience where, in particular, you don't have to do anything in your opponent's turn. Other games since have kind of relaxed that. Yeah, most people are going to be paying attention most of the time. It's okay to allow people to decide to block and stuff. Eternal has instants and cards that you can respond to things with the same way that Magic does, and also incorporates some of Magic's other maybe more controversial mechanics. But it adds some finickiness and complexity in doing so. This game manages to strike a really good balance between the game feeling like Magic and having Magic-esque interplay and mechanics in it, while also being about as snappy as Hearthstone is. Rather than describe it all up front, let's just have a game. My first impression of this game was not great. I mean, I was expecting it to be bad because they didn't announce it. And when you load in this little announcer character that takes you through this kind of overbearing intro chat and tutorial, and then you're introduced to your first Spellslinger, which is like heroes, classes, some mix of the two. Let's see, I want most of these. Yeah, you're introduced to your first Spellslinger, Chandra, who's a pyromancer, given this basic deck. And the characters in this game are very chatty. I've turned the voice volume way down because so they don't talk over me, basically. But the game is not only full of some spectacular decisions in voice acting, they also have these face models that look like they could use a lot more time in the oven. Like, if there's one aspect of the game that reflects the presumably years of development hell it seems to have gone through, based on the fact that people were tweeting about having worked on it several years back, it's the character models themselves. It has this kind of it's quite devoted to the fact that it has these characters and they're meant to be fan favorites or reflections of Magic's storytelling, and of course they're all fighting each other for your amusement. I think that the idea of the game is that they're having basically a friendly punch-up, and so they will say things. One of them is like, "Loser buys lunch" at the start of the game and things like that. It's cute. My wife pointed out that it's a bit feels a little uncomfortable that the implication of this type of presentation is that the game is intended to attract children. I think because obviously free-to-play games being sold to kids is generally bad, and obviously Fortnite is that, right? It's a model that works. And there are plenty of stories of, kids getting socially ousted because they don't have the cool skins or whatever. I don't know how much a proportion of plays of social events related to Fortnite that is, but generally speaking, selling free-to-play games to kids is ethically dodgy. The game doesn't play like a kid's game other than that, though. It's the reason I like it so much is that its mechanics are surprisingly robust and interesting. I think it also does a very good job of adapting Magic to the online sphere in a way that I haven't seen other games achieve, right? Magic Arena implements the literal rules of Magic, but the literal rules of Magic are designed primarily for human beings to be able to like shortcut them in real life. Having to click through all of the interactions manually makes for a very slow experience, which Arena tries to work around and succeeds in some ways, but mostly it's clunky. And I'm personally not a big fan of its UI. Might actually, let's kill that. This game succeeds dramatically where these other games have kind of struggled a bit before by taking its own approach to mechanics, but reinterpreting kind of staple characters and interactions of Magic's gameplay in this new set. It's very elegant in the way it approaches some of that. So obviously I've been playing this game for a little bit. Let's just talk through how it actually works. So we have standard kind of turn sequence. I have my turn, you have your turn. I can attack with my minions on my turn. You can decide whether or not to block them. Like in Magic or Eternal, but unlike in Magic or Eternal, damage stays on minions, like in Hearthstone. So it's kind of a mix of the two approaches. There is a way to interact in your opponent's turn in this game. It's called traps. The way traps work is you basically decide to hold them up. You can like prepare them, spend the mana on activating your trap. And if your opponent does something, the trap will trigger. It's like a secret in Hearthstone, but they don't know you've done it. It doesn't go on the board, and if they don't play into it, it just stays in your hand. It does nothing. So it is much more like holding mana open in Magic to play a spell, which is a really classic piece of Magic gameplay design that is one of the hallmarks of Magic, and one of the reasons it's so interesting is like the hidden information of, okay, my opponent has 2 untapped mana. What does that mean? What can they do in response to me doing stuff? As a side note, I am currently winning this game pretty hard. You'd love to see it. So with just blocking and this trap mechanic, which is like a hybrid of instants and secrets, you have a relatively snappy playstyle where, yes, there is some amount of interaction in your opponent's turn, but you don't have to like click, yeah, okay, in response to every spell they play. It's just a pretty simple... there's only one point where you make decisions in your opponent's turn. So it keeps the game going, unlike in Arena where you can have lots of pauses that can bog the game down a little bit. There is also an attack with all button, which I wish I wish more games had. Arena... Oh no, Arena does have that, doesn't it? Although it's 2 buttons. Let's give me double click. The other thing I want to say about this game that contributes to it feeling very modern is it has an excellent phone UI. It's the first card game I've seen, or personally, card game I've personally played that plays vertically instead of horizontally on mobile, which makes it a lot easier on the hands. It's very comfortable. Good, easy to play one-handed, which is quite important when you're like on the toilet or something. Very good for that. There are also lots of other mechanics that are kind of drawn from Magic, and some that are completely novel for the game, for the card game, the online game. Unlike in Magic, you have heroes, which are kind of like character classes. It's an interesting combination of being able to put multiple colors in your deck in Magic, and having the restrictive classes of Hearthstone. Let's play this. Everyone's still at 20, which is alarming. So I'm currently playing a hero called Liliana. She's one of the recurring main characters of Magic the Gathering storyline, and a very popular planeswalker. There's lots of cards with Liliana on. Liliana's flavor is she's a necromancer. And in the game, so that there's 5 colors in Magic for those uninitiated: white, blue, black, red, and green. And then there are also cards with more than 1 color. And they represent things similar to the factions or classes in other games, but you can mix and match them. In this game, your Spellslinger, your hero character, determines not only which colors you can play, but also gives you some passive abilities. So if I click on this icon here, Liliana's a black hero, so I can play black cards. when I return creatures from the graveyard, which is your discard pile, it gets bigger and I heal one, so she wants to play lots of things that come back. And then I can also play up to 6 cards of a second color. A lot of the single-colored planeswalkers have this ability, and it's really interesting because it's very reminiscent of, like, you do that in Magic. You splash colors all the time. It's a very common thing you do when building Magic decks. And the game is built around allowing you to do that, mix and match colors. So you can't mix and match completely freely like you could in Magic itself, but it gives you this kind of nice hybrid approach where, excuse me, where you get a little bit of one, a little bit of the other. And then each hero also has these passive abilities that you can build around as well. And there's something like 20 of them. I'll show you the list in a bit. My opponent is playing a hero called Ashiok, which is a 2-color planeswalker. So Ashiok can have blue and black spells in their deck, and is sort of built around generating extra cards, so like adding cards to their hand that didn't start in their deck, which is a very, very online game thing, right? Hearthstone has had random card generation for a long time, and some people don't like it as much, but it is a very core component of the way Hearthstone plays nowadays, and I think it was a necessary step to reduce the repetitiveness of longer game matchups in that game. Magic Spellslingers also has a decent amount of it, and like I said, there's a hero themed around it, so you can play, hey, I'm just gonna like generate loads of random cards and have a fun time. My opponent's dead here. You can block this and then they take $1 billion. So basically this gives you a reasonable degree of freedom in building your deck, and a reasonable degree of directionality. It's quite nice to have heroes with passives. I've come to enjoy it in card games generally. Like, I think Magic itself does get a lot of value from its openness, but in online games, I think it's nice to have something to build around. Like, going back to Duelist 2 and not having the Bloodborne spells on the heroes. Yes, you obviously have the class-specific cards, but you do miss, or I did miss, having this extra kind of force multiplier to change the value of cards. So right now, there are 17 different Spellslingers, heroes, in the game. You have to unlock them over time. You fill up this progress bar as you get cards, or you can pay money. I'll talk about the monetization later, but I haven't spent any money on this game yet. So currently I have Chandra, who's the starter one. She's basically an aggro hero. Red is the most aggressive color in Magic generally, and that's been reflected here. Chandra plays mono red. Again, you can splash, so I've been splashing green in a lot of my decks. Got Liliana, who I just played, who likes zombies. Oh, I should also mention the heroes also have like specific cards that only they have access to, which tend to be very powerful. These are usually more pushed and fit the themes that the hero wants to play as. So far, I don't think I've played any less than all. They allowed 2 copies of each of the 2. What are they called? I don't know the specific cards that hero has. Signature cards, that's what they're called. Jace, the Monoblue control hero. Again, you can splash a couple cards of another color. He has a really fun ability where basically he has like an ultimate where it costs 20 mana, but it gets cheaper every time you draw a card. And when you activate it, it changes all of the cards in your deck to cost 1. So you can have some really big turns once you've activated that to take over the game. He's my favorite one to play so far. Kiora is blue-green. She's like a kind of... So green in Magic is where you get extra mana, the ramp color. And blue is usually more controlling, but has like card draw and stuff. So you can make these longer game decks around having big creatures and card advantage. And Kiora leans into that by, when you reach certain high mana thresholds, 10, 15, and 20, you get a Leviathan. One of 3 random Leviathans that are like these huge monsters that help you win the game, basically. So she kind of generates card advantage inherently, so you're not punished for like spending cards ramping. She also crucially provides a removal spell. Blue and green don't have great removal for onboard things, especially large onboard things. You can return them to your opponent's hand, but it's hard to like actually kill stuff. So Kiora kind of shores up that weakness herself. And then finally I've got Kaya. There's a white-black kind of... She benefits from dealing damage to her opponents in certain amounts. Like when she deals 3 damage to an opponent in one turn, she gets a little spirit. And then the amount she needs to deal goes up. So she's kind of an aggro hero, but like not just out and out like push face damage, push face damage. It's usually about setting up turns where you can attack with like multiple evasive creatures and stuff that your opponent can't easily block to get the value. She's also the only white planeswalker I've played. I've not really found the white walkers to be that inspiring because most of them are just variants on aggro. And I've already got an aggro deck that, you know, I'm much more about playing the control style of this game. I like it more. Yeah, there's a huge variety of them that lean into different mechanical themes. A lot of them are just aggressive. This deck is quite big. This game is quite big on aggro. And most of the matchups I played against have been aggro. To the point where I was thinking about, like, can I tune my deck to be more anti-aggro? Should I tune my deck to be more anti-aggro? I think the answer is probably yes, at least right now. I think they've done a good job of making aggressive decks not feel bad. Like, there's lots of ways of interacting with your opponent because there are cheap traps that, like, protect your creatures when they fight. Or protect them from removal. So you can, in the same way as in Magic, like a really common play pattern is, I have a 2/2, you have a 2/3, I attack you. You're like, why would you attack your smaller creature into my bigger creature I can just block? So do you have a spell? Do you have an instant speed spell that you can cast before the creatures actually damage each other that makes you win combat? So the most famous cards in Magic for this is called Giant Growth. It's a single mana, instant, which means you can cast it basically at any time. Give a creature +3/+3. And that card is in this game as a trap where before one of your creatures fights an enemy creature, so like when they hit each other in combat, give it +3/+3. In this case, the bonus is permanent. And there's some... You like block in order in this game. You block one at a time, so you can kind of play around it that way a little bit. So it has different implications that match the game you're actually playing. Spellslingers is not exactly the same as the Magic card, but also it's got the same name, it's got the same bonus, and it does roughly the same thing. It's kind of a very nice marriage of the two, and there's a ton of that stuff in this game that has kind of kept me really enjoying the card pool, even at its current small stage. Since we're in the collection manager, let's have a look. How many cards are there in this game? Nearly 1,000. Oh no, but this is with foils. So nearly 500 cards in this game right now. Actually, there's more than I thought. It just came out. Bizarrely, they released an expansion the other day. It was just in like a patch. I loaded the game and they were like, oh yeah, by the way, there's an expansion now. I haven't seen any announcements about it. Again, complete lack of any sort of marketing that I've been aware of. Very strange. Anyway. So there's about 500 cards in the game divided between the 5 colors and some colorless cards, and then multicolor cards as well. So for any individual deck, if you're playing a monocolor planeswalker, like I mentioned, you can splash a few cards of a second color. But in just any one color, let's see if I do this. So you've got about 100 cards between mono black and colorless. One of the reasons the splashing is cool, not only is it evocative of how you play Magic itself, it's quite good for newer players because if you open a bomb rare, you can just put it in your deck. I have splashed green in most of my decks because I opened this mythic General Eladamri that's like a really ridiculous card, and I've just been playing it in everything because it's great. So I'm splashing green a lot because like that's where most of the like big bomby cards that I opened early on were. And so even if you've only got a couple of big rares, you can put them in your deck anyway, which I think helps smooth the process of getting into the game and being able to play. I think part of the reason aggro is so popular is that a lot of the creatures, a lot of the cards are just random creatures, and the stat to mana cost ratio in this game is a bit more aggressive than it is in Magic or even Hearthstone. You can get a 3 mana 4/4 with an upside. In green, other colors have slightly smaller creatures, but there are loads of 3 mana 3/4s with good upside. Plenty of there's a 2 mana 4/3 in green, which the same card in Magic is a 3/3 and is a little harder to cast. I'm trying to find it. Seems to have filtered weirdly. Oh right, it's because this is the new set. I'll just search for it. Yeah, and again, speaking of references to Magic, in Magic, this card is a 2 mana 3/3. It's got the same name, different art, but the same name. And it's kind of this is what that card looks like in Spellslingers. There's tons of stuff like that I have really enjoyed. They've even ported over the Titans. There's a famous cycle in Magic of the so-called Titans, 6 mana 6/6 giants with really, really powerful abilities that trigger when they either get played or attack. They are in this game. They cost more. They're a bit bigger. They have somewhat weaker abilities, but they're all here, and you can play them, and they're still good. And I've been enjoying casting them. I've got a few so far. I've just randomly opened. Let's play another game, and then we'll chat a bit more. What else does this cover? Oh yeah, some of the I mentioned that the faces look a bit weird. I think most of the character animations and voice lines are weird or disturbing in their own specific way. Vivian's face is that's not what human faces are supposed to look like. I want to keep this. So the Vivian is another she's a mono green planeswalker, and she plays minions and buffs them basically. She can store a buff for the next minion you play. Quite an interesting hero. I've got a quest in this deck that I opened. So quests, quests are the Hearthstone name for them. Trials and duelists you're probably more familiar with if you're watching my YouTube channel. In this game they're called classes, as in from D&D type classes. And they have I'll just play this. They have a quite nice implementation. So the typical thing of a quest is it's a relatively cheap early thing that you always draw in your opening hand that has some condition and provides some way to win the game if you complete it. The classes in this game, you do always have them, but instead of providing you a kind of solve this puzzle and then you get to win the game, they level up 3 times. And each time it does so, it puts a new card in the top 3 cards of your library. So, unlike quests in Duelist or in Hearthstone, in Hearthstone I think they replace the card in your opening hand. But in Duelist, one of the issues with Trials was that they were free, they were kind of extra. In this game, you have to draw them. You'll draw them sooner rather than later, but you still have to find a way to draw them. That's scary. I might just kill it with time to 2 for 1 myself. Oh. Feels bad. There we go. In case you're wondering where this fish comes from, I get it. Kiora gives you one for free. I don't really know why. You just have a fish. It's mostly a chop blocker, but you can buff it sometimes and do stuff with it. Yeah, the way the classes work in this game is every time you level up, you put a new card on the top of your library. So this is the second level of this. When I play this, it will add the next card in the sequence, the third and final, to the top 3 cards of my deck. So in this case, I get a 2 mana 3/2 that heals me, a ramp spell, and then I get a huge creature that defends me and is hard to kill. Do I need to? That was relentless. It's a bit scary. No, I can take a turn off. It's fine. It's a bit greedy, but no, actually that was wrong. I probably should have used my 4 mana removal spell and then played my ramp spell and this next turn together, just for mana efficiency's sake. I guess I can do both of these next turn because I ramped. Oh god. Probably going to block that. Oh, they didn't attack? My opponent forgot to attack with their creature with haste. Or maybe they misclicked and played them the wrong way around, I guess. Yeah, what else? I normally play this game on mute. That's not super unusual for me. I play a lot of card games on mute with something on the second monitor. But I think in the case of Spellslingers, it genuinely does improve the experience because for me, the voice lines and things get very grating after a little while. Oh, perfect. I'll just kill this, I guess. Feels inefficient compared to... I'll do this first. I can do this next turn, along with something else, hopefully. I'm running a bit low on cards, although I guess this fixes that problem. But yeah, despite the... Oh, wow. Block this. But despite the somewhat frustration of the art presentation, I guess you can't see Kyora's face under my camera. I just realized. Let me move this. My hero also looks quite weird. I'll leave myself here actually, so you can see my monitor and stuff. Should have thought about that. But I have my big payoff, which is an extremely good card. So I can probably lean on that. But I think, like I said, block this. It will come back when it dies because it has Relentless, thanks to one of the upgrades that it got. But at least I get rid of it. Take 4, and this will block this next turn. So I think that's probably safe. Let's do this. This also ramps me twice, which means next turn I'll hit 10 mana, which gets me my Leviathan because of Kyora's ability. So I'll get a huge 10 mana creature, one of these 3. This one in particular is very good. It returns 2 things. Ooh, that's scary. Guess I take a lot of damage. That's also scary. Might be in trouble here, folks. Oh no, that's annoying. Just never killing that. Right, give me the one that bounces 2 things. No, that's mediocre. Oh, one thing this game does very pleasingly that I haven't seen much of before is it has a couple of one-turn only mechanics. So Ward is untargetable, but only for a turn. And after that, you can interact with it normally. It solves a big problem that mechanics like Hexproof, the magic equivalent, where a thing is just can't be targeted ever, has. It solves a big problem with that. Heal 5, that could be useful. Well, hello. So this card, this is my class payoff. It has Ward, so my opponent can't target it next turn, and then on their following turn they will be able to. But I'll have at least one. I get to start my turn with it. I get to attack with it at least once, and this turn they can't just remove it and continue attacking me. So Ward makes it's a very fair mechanic. It allows you to play with your large creature at least a bit. But then gives the opponent an opportunity to remove it after that. So maybe they just, they take the damage from one attack, or they jump block it or something, and then they can kill it. That's upsetting. Wait, why does this have haste? Oh, they must have given it haste with the get a creature card. Right, I think this is going to die, right? So this absorbs damage that is dealt to me. So I guess I just need to block. Can I keep this alive? Yeah, because I think I block here, and then it takes 6 damage, even if I block this. I don't know exactly how it works. Like, if it dies, I guess it'll die to, like, this hitting me, and then these will hit me normally. I don't really want that to happen, so I think I will block here. And then this, unfortunately, dies. I think I've lost this game, but we'll see what I draw. Might get something good. I can retaliate on this. Buff that again. Plus 3. Oh my god. Maybe I need to retaliate on that. Maybe I can just block it. With this 2/1. I don't think I can afford to play this turn or this. I just need to play a bunch of small stuff. Let's generate a card with this. What do we get? That is another expensive minion. Get rid of this, because this provides value as long as it sticks in play. I could just play this, actually. It kills that, which is quite important. Like, we block here. block this. Yeah, I'm going to do this, I think. It's a bit risky if they have removal, but green doesn't usually have a lot of removal. I guess there's a destroy a flying creature which they could have. And there's a thing that gives a creature +1/+1 and lets it fight another creature. Oh no, they have this. This card is really, really good. It generates 3 spells. One of them goes into your hand, the other 2 go into your deck. All of them are very, very powerful. This one makes all your creatures unblockable once. Sneak is another one of those one-turn mechanics I was talking about. Okay, I think that's probably what they got, because they didn't attack. So I think I'm dead. I can't afford to play this and cast the spell I get off of it. So they've probably got me here. Can at least swing in with the flyer for some damage. Okay, so if they don't have the... They have one of the other two. They have the game control. They can steal this. This at least helps a bit with that. They have the one that makes a bunch of flying creatures. I think I die anyway. So I can play this, and this in one go. And then Arcanist next turn. Or I can do Eric Smithies and heal. Those are basically the 2 options. I think this is better. Make a bunch of stuff, right? Oh no, I should have given this water. What am I doing? So then they can't steal it. I'm going to heal myself here. But I'm guessing they have the sneak one, because otherwise they probably would have attacked last turn. And also they're good gaming me. Oh, that's not it. Oh, they're just BMing. Right, while my opponent's messing around, ending the game. What else is there to... Yeah, there it is. Goodbye. Getting a taste of my own medicine here, to be fair. This card is one of the main win conditions in my blue deck, the Jace deck. I found so far one of the things that I think is helping me enjoy this game is, so I'm not super high on the ladder. It takes a while to rank up, and a lot of my opponents seem to be playing decks that are roughly the same level as mine, in that like it's just like cards you have. I do occasionally come up against decks that I feel are more optimized, but I don't have too many of those. And when that happens, I lose. There was a rank reset the other day, which is why I'm in bronze, or well, silver now. They did make it up to platinum before, but when they released the expansion, they reset everyone's rank down, and they messed it up and reset it further than they meant to. Everyone was supposed to lose 1 rank, and instead we lost 3, so I'm quite far back. Now it's Ashiok again. Unfortunate. I'm going to replace this because I've got this one, which already ramps me, and I've got the class quest card thing that gets me ramp as well. Yeah, so the way this works is there's now a 3/2 wolf in the top 3 cards of my library, which have to be on the top. That's fortunate. So I'll play this next turn, and then it'll put the ramp spell in the top 3 cards of my library, and then when I play that, it'll put the big 8/10 ward in the top 10 cards, top 3 cards of my library. So I'm just going to play this straight away, partly because they've only got a 1/2, so I can attack into it, and partly to, like, if I get the ramp spell next turn, that's big high roll. Although maybe playing this is still better for tempo's sake, because it can attack. There it is. It also gives them random friendly creature +1/+1, so I could buff the fish with it. If I get lucky and buff this, it can attack cleanly, but I don't think I really mind about that. I think I'm better off... Oh, let's give it a go. Okay, I buffed the fish. I'm going to attack with the fish anyway. I could attack with just the fish and not this. Although I don't think there's no point in being precious about keeping this around. Like, they're going to be able to trade off anyway at some point. And it's not like it does anything otherwise. Just a 3/2. Uh-oh. I think one thing that is a little more frustrating about this game, I guess, is so there are some heroes that are more popular than others. A lot of the ones that are most popular have some kind of inevitability measure that you can't really do anything about. So like this one, for instance, I'll just block that right. Yeah. So whenever you generate a card into your hand, or play a card that you generated this way, Ashiok puts a nightmare on a random card in your deck, which when you draw or mill that card, you lose 1 life and they gain life. So if you've ever played Legends of Runeterra, it's exactly the same, or it's pretty similar to Teemo's Puffballs, except rather than being specific cards doing that, it's a bit of a nicer design in that, like, it's built into the hero and it just has a condition, so you can play quite a wide variety of different cards with it. And of course you get more variety because you're generating stuff all the time. I haven't unlocked Ashiok myself yet, and I fully recognize that what I'm about to say is super hypocritical, because if I had unlocked Ashiok, I would probably play them all the time, because that is exactly the sort of thing I like doing in Hearthstone. But this hero is very popular, and it's not overpowered or anything. Quite the opposite. I haven't struggled that much to beat it. But it is one of those things where, like, if they generate a particular card at a particular time that really wins the game, you know, like sometimes they random into something that puts them quite far ahead in a way that can be a little frustrating. And the fact that they keep putting the nightmares on your cards can also be a little feel bad. So it's one of those things where, oh, that's pretty good. It's one of those things where, like, there's nothing wrong with it from a balance perspective, but it can get tedious playing against it. There are a couple of worse offenders, a couple of the more aggressive heroes. There's one called Domri Rad that every time when you play a minion, it ticks up a counter, and after 5 plays, you get a 0 mana 3/2, which is, you know, quite strong. Let's play this bad boy. That animation where it stomps and fills the screen is cool, but it takes me by surprise every time. It's like the level up animations in Legends of Runeterra, where it's like you do something and then suddenly, like, the entire screen is filled with, like, your hero, you know, hero doing something silly. Feels like a bit of a lot. What on earth is going on? Why are they? Oh right, they've played a spell then. Cool. Yeah, some of the more aggressive heroes. There's a new one that came out with the new expansion that I find very frustrating to play against repeatedly. His name is Drizzed. I'm just going to do this now. Get in for a bunch of damage. And he benefits from playing legendary creatures. And whenever you attack with a legendary creature, in this game, legendary is like a state, not a rarity, by the way. So there are legendaries of different rarities. But when you attack with a legendary creature, it spawns a 1/2. It's like a 0/2 with trample that gets +1 attack when it attacks. And anytime it dies or deals damage, it goes back. It goes away. But every time it attacks, it gets more and more damage. And it has trample, so if you block it, any excess damage it would deal to the blocking creature is dealt to the opponent instead. I find playing against this pretty tedious. That is quite a good draw. In part because, like, legendaries are, you know, they tend to be, like, relatively excitingly statted. So they can apply a lot of pressure. Speaking of pressure. Have it. Oh yeah, I forgot that they doomed that. Poor thing. Yeah, legendary creatures can apply a fair amount of pressure by themselves, but getting this free creature that you can't interact with that keeps attacking feels pretty rude. Like, if it didn't have trample, I wouldn't be too bothered by it, because if you'd at least be able to like put small minions in the way once they started snowballing with it, you know, once they buffed it up a few times, it wouldn't be quite as bad. But the fact that it does have trample makes it a little difficult to interact with, in a way that, like, you know, this hero's ability is uninteractive, but you're still just fighting them on the board. Like, it doesn't generate tempo, it just, you know, hurts you and gains them life. So you can heal yourself and you can try and win the board and pressure them down like we just did, and you'll get the W. The ones that give them extra creatures to attack with, those can feel a little oppressive when the decks are firing on all cylinders. And so far, I think because of the way the new hero, because it requires legendaries, and legendaries tend to be high rarity, I think the only people really playing it are people who own lots of cards. So every time I come up against it so far, the deck has been very strong. And it's a little scary. They might nerf it, I don't know. It seems they could just remove trample and it would be perfectly fine, I think. Right, before I wrap this up, let's look at the elephant in the room for any free-to-play game, which is the monetization. So I have not spent money on this game yet. I have no real intention of doing so. Broadly speaking, there are two things to unlock that you might spend money on. There are the Spellslingers themselves, which give you deck building options. And obviously they're unique cards. And then there are cards, which come in packs the same way they do in any other card game. Cards come in 4 rarities: commons, rares, epics, and mythics. Mythics are the equivalent of legendaries in other games, but they don't have the... Like in this game, the state of being legendary is something that's a property of the card, not of the rarity. You can only have one copy of a legendary in your deck, but they aren't all mythic rarities. Some of them are epics. I don't think there are any rare legendaries yet, but they might make some in the future. Basically the same as... Similar to normal Magic, it doesn't have a deck building restriction for legendaries. I think it has a different restriction instead, but it's the same thing where the legendary status is part of the card, not part of the rarity. I haven't really struggled to have epic or mythic rarity cards. The drop rate on them isn't terrible. I think 1 in 10 packs gives you a mythic, so it's a better drop rate than most other games. I think it's worse than Duelist, but better than any other game, I think. There is a crafting system. I have so far not crafted very much. I think crafting epics and mythics is, at least at first, prohibitively expensive. But I have now reached the point where I've got most common cards, and so I've started to... They've started to become crafting material instead. There's a weird thing where the crafting is... There's like loads of different crafting materials. There are separate ones for each color and then multicolored cards, and there are also these different consumable anima things that can make crafting cheaper, which is basically like, I guess it's like crafting material that you can only spend. There's a weird but kind of interesting mechanic in the game called teams, where at some point it encourages you to join a team of people. I just picked a public one at random. And you can donate to these little... You can request the consumable discount things and donate small amounts of crafting material to your teammates so that they get the discount. So it's kind of like... I guess it's like this thing that encourages people to spend their crafting material in some way. And it's quite nice. It gives you a feeling of camaraderie. There's like a cooldown on how often you can request. You can't spam it. You're encouraged you just do it, you know. It is a game that encourages you to log in frequently, but not in a way that I found to be super aggressive, like because of things like the cooldown on when you can request crafting materials and daily deals. Every day there's like, you get some free gold, and then you can spend thumb gold to buy like a specific, this one is always here, you can buy a pack for some gold, and then you can also buy like various cards. There's usually a cheap one, a middle one, and an expensive one. In this case, the middle one is also expensive. But sometimes there's normally one that's like a few thousand, I think. the way you gain, so you gain gold by completing challenges, which are like the little quests in other games that give you stuff. I'll show you those in a second. There are also gems, which are mostly premium currency, but you also gain them from some challenges and from leveling up your hero, or like ranking up on ladder. And finally, you can also get small amounts of like everything by winning. Oh, here we go. Perfect. Every 5 wins. In 25 matches to win a chest? Has that changed? Oh, I see. It changes based on how many. Oh, that's interesting. Normally, every 5 wins, you get a chest, but I guess I've played enough this week that I've now reached the last one, so I don't get it until I win 25 matches, which is quite a lot. So these give you a few cards, which are sometimes higher rarity. Oh, that's cool. That's a new card. They give you some progress towards unlocking a Spellslinger, which I guess we get to do on camera, which is kind of exciting. We get some gold, and we get some crafting material. For context, so crafting a common is 30, a rare is 120, an epic is 600, which is a big jump, and then a mythic is 1200. So normally in games there's sort of an exponential cost increase. In this game, there's a big jump up to epics and then a smaller jump up to mythics. Oh, the multiplier is smaller up to mythics. But I'm yet to craft an epic. I've done a bit of crafting, but not too much. And duplicate cards are turned into crafting materials. The same way as they are in other games. You can't choose to dust stuff. You have to get the duplicates, which I guess is fine. I don't think that like dusting your cards in other games never feels great. It's generally pretty low value unless they've like rotated out of standard and you're not going to play them anymore. In terms of the things you can buy, I think the spending money on this game is very inefficient. I think so. A pack is 200 gems. So this makes the packs about £2, which is quite a lot. For like normally they're about £1 or $1, I guess. I don't know exactly how it changes between territories in other games. And in this game, the prices are all in USD because I guess that's how it is. So yeah, a pack is like just over £1. Sorry, just under £2, I guess. Depending on which of these variously efficient options you pick. You can also buy gold using gems. I've never seen fit to do this, but cool that it's there, I guess. Then there are these specials. Sometimes these cost money. Like, there's sometimes packs where you can have... So these change day to day, but there's sometimes ones where you can get, like... You can unlock a Spellslinger and get, like, one mythic card. And they're, like, $20 or something, which is absurd. I don't know why you'd buy that. There's a new player introductory thing, which is $5 for like 5 packs and a bunch of gold and gems. That's very efficiently priced, but you can't get it once you've gotten above a certain rank on the ladder. So by the time I'd played enough to be like, yeah, I'm going to keep playing this, I'm happy to throw them some money, I wasn't able to buy it anymore. So I just haven't given them any money. It feels like a bit of a mistake rather than, like, in most games, there's a new player thing that you can buy once, but you can buy it whenever you want. I wasn't expecting it to just disappear once I'd unlocked a few cards. It was a very strange decision on their part. But I will say I haven't felt particularly compelled to spend money. I think, although you can build optimized decks, a lot of the strongest decks I've played against are still playing a bunch of commons. Like, a lot of it, because the game is relatively aggressive, a lot of it is just about playing these like cheap interactive cards, like these traps that buff your stuff in combat. There's another one that gives armor, which is like Divine Shield, where it ignores the next hit it takes. That's really good. I play against that a lot. And just like cheap, efficiently costed minions that are quite readily available at lower rarities. There's also stuff like this card. This is a common. The card's really good. sees a lot of play in control decks. There's a cycle of colorless cards that do something similar, like they're in different sets. The fact that they're grouped by set is really confusing. Hold on. Here we go. I haven't talked about lands. Come to them in a second. Yeah, there are these colorless cards that add random cards of a certain color to your deck. Nope, this isn't what I want, is it? Rarity. Can you not sort by color? Just filter. Alright, here we go. So this one gives you a random blue card. This one gives you a random white card, and so on. They're different costs and stats, but again, these are all commons, easy to get by, and they can generate higher rarity, more exciting cards for you. So, you know, even if you're brand new, you can sometimes generate a legendary off this, or some, you know, some mythic rare bomb, and have a nice time casting the exciting card. There's also plenty of removal. There's no lack of ways to just kill stuff. For instance, this is 4 mana, destroy a creature. No muss, no fuss. This card's good. The game is set up in such a way that this card is good. Broadly speaking, the dynamic of removal seems to be like, you can go low, under cards like this. You can give stuff ward so that it can't be targeted for a turn. Or you can just try and power through it with, you know, card drawn enough. There's not enough. In Magic, it tends to be the case where the larger and more expensive minions that see play have really powerful debut, opening gambit, battlecry, when they sends the battlefield type abilities. Debut is what they're called in this game, where it's basically when you play it, it does a thing, and then if it dies, well, it's still done its thing. Or they can protect themselves. In this game, there's a bit less of that, so these removal spells are still good, and most of the time, if your opponent plays a big idiot, you can kill it, and you're not like super far behind for having done so, which I think is good, because it means that when your opponent plays some mythic rare and you kill it, you haven't lost the game anyway, right? So I found it to be pretty approachable at the low level of card ownership, and as a result, I think this game is actually very friendly to playing for free. As I said, I haven't felt compelled to spend money on it. Like, yeah, I can look at the collection and be like, oh, look at all these cool cards I don't have that are mythics or whatever, but it's fine. Like, I'm happy with the stuff I do have. And likewise, the Spellslingers, like, you know, I've been playing this game for a couple of weeks. I've got a few of them. I'm really enjoying playing most of the ones I have, so I'm not really lacking in, oh, I have to unlock all of these as quickly as possible. There's a couple that I am looking forward to. I will probably play the crap out of Ashiok when I unlock them. Vraska's cool. She doubles up on death triggers, and that's something I always enjoy doing in Magic. Ral triggers off of casting lots of spells, which is also something I really enjoy doing. But most of the others are just like, oh, it's aggro. Like, aggro. Ramp, I guess. Aggro. Aggro. Mostly aggro. 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 Like, if there's one problem with this game, is that more than half the heroes are just like variants on the same thing. Yeah, they're different colors, they have different abilities and the detail, but like, it's just aggro. With different levels of inevitability, and the ones that are stronger, or feel stronger to play against, are the ones that have more inevitability, that can generate extra attackers, or big pressure turns, without having to commit heavily to the board to do so, like the new guy. I think this is probably the strongest hero in the game at the moment, but it's hard to tell for sure. Especially as it's only just come out. This is the one I was talking about earlier, Drizzt. That makes the trampoly creature that buffs itself every time when you attack with a legendary creature. But I think there are others, like this one, like Ajani is reasonably different. Oh god, didn't mean to cancel that. Ajani is reasonably different. Like, he triggers off of his ability, triggers off of targeting your own minions with stuff, which is a playstyle imported from Magic. A theme that sometimes shows up in sets called Heroic. Like, a lot of these are based off things that happen in Magic, but with a Spellslinger's lens, rather than just directly trying to replicate the same stuff, which I think is the main strength of the game, like its ability to be evocative of its source material without being without trying to basically just write the words down. You know what I mean? Like, oh, I said I'd show you the challenges. These are the daily quests. You get a few of them. You don't get them every day. You get one every few hours, and they sort of stack up. And there are also team challenges that you complete with your team, which are quite nice. You get 3 of those every few days. I want to say every 4 or 5 days, I guess. I think these ones showed up relatively recently. The rewards on these tend to be quite small. This one's awarding an entire pack. That's pretty spicy. But normally you just get a bit of gold. But there's enough of them. And I think they serve their purpose well of like encouraging me to rotate between different decks rather than playing the same thing over and over again. Which I would probably do anyway based on my mood, but it definitely helps bias in that direction. I've not found them onerous. There are very few that require you to win games. So it's, sometimes they're annoying. Like there's one that's play a giant creature. There aren't that many giants in the game, especially at low rarities. And so for a long time I was just playing with like one giant in my deck, hoping I drew it so I could complete the quest. That one's annoying, but the others are like, play 4 zombies. Well, I have a zombie themed hero, so it's not a big deal. I suspect, although I'm not sure, the game chooses challenges that you can actually do in some way. Although it did give me, I had one that was like play X white cards for a while before I actually unlocked any white Spellslingers, because I haven't found the white ones particularly interesting. Like I said, it's all aggro really. So I think that's it. I feel like, to return to my original sort of thesis and the title of this video, this game really deserves better. Like, I understand why Hasbro or Wizards or whatever might be leery of leaning hard into a potentially embarrassing failure after Magic Legends flopped so badly. And I'm assuming that was a more expensive loss than this one too. But I think this game is good. Like, it needs polish. As I mentioned earlier, the characters look a bit janky, the voice lines are annoying, and a little bit sort of in your face. And it makes as a result of both of those things, it makes kind of a bad first impression, because that's what it immediately hands you, is like this announcer character and then a couple of very short battles, just to show you like, hey, so you click on things and attack that last a turn or two. So you repeatedly get to see the characters like doing their little voice line when you start the game and their little voice line when you finish the game. And it's the same thing every time. And I found that very grating. But basically, once I muted the sound, I was like, this game's great. Like, sorry, voice actors, I don't want to poop on your material. It's definitely not your fault. But yeah, I think the game could really use some polish in those kind of areas. And I think they might struggle to make money based on how wonky the purchasable offerings are. But it's nice that, I haven't felt super obliged or compelled to spend money to be able to play or to compete, or most importantly, to have fun. And I've also found the game to have plenty of room for skill expression. Like, my win rate's been pretty good, because obviously I'm coming in with a lot of card game experience. And generally when I'm playing against people with a similar level of card acquisition as me, I feel favored. So that's, obviously that biases me towards liking the game more because I'm winning more. But also it's nice that I am able to leverage my experience. And then obviously once I've climbed up the ladder far enough, if they don't keep resetting me back to bronze by accident, then I'll be playing against people with, beefed up decks or people with a similar level of experience to myself. And it'll be, much more on an even keel. Like, since the reset, my games have been noticeably harder because I'm playing against a wider variety of opponents. The one thing I think the game is super missing is a draft mode. I mean, I love Limited. I play Limited preferentially in Magic itself, and tend to be a big fan of it in online games. I tend to like online games more when the Limited mode is good, and like them less, play them less when it's bad. And here, I think it would be quite, because the game right now, the card pool is kind of small and very focused on standard effects. There aren't too many, like, when you play matches, the kind of inevitability and texture comes mostly from the heroes, and the cards themselves tend to be relatively plain or generalist, or fit into like broad overarching themes like card generation or lots of cards with sneak or flying for evasion and stuff like that, which is fantastic for a draft mode where you don't want things that are super complicated as themes because they're not going to be very predictable, but you do want some amount of theme and some amount of decision power over the strategy of your deck as you're drafting. And I think this game would be quite good in draft, but there isn't a draft mode yet. There's just ladder. The other thing is, like, I have no idea if this game is going to last. Like, they dropped an expansion with no announcement whatsoever, which makes me wonder if, like, are they just putting this out there to see if they can recoup some of their costs before they move on? Maybe, maybe not. I feel like you're still going to recoup a lot of costs by just cancelling the game as opposed to going to the effort of launching it, supporting it, running the servers, community management, all this stuff. So, maybe. They're at least saving on their marketing budget, but I feel like they shouldn't. I think this game is genuinely good. And I think it has, if you like Magic in particular, there are loads of nice mechanical references and touch points that gladden the heart. This setting-wise, it's set on Kiora, which if you play Magic and you played the Battle Bond set, it's the setting of that. So there's some references to that in here. There's like characters in Battle Bond, there were like pairs of characters that could partner together, and some of those pairs exist in this game, and they don't have partner mechanics. You can just put them both in your deck normally, but they synergize with each other in a really clever way. It's just like there's a lot of elegant, experienced game design that's got into the card pool of this game that you don't often see in new games. They tend to feel a lot more raw than this does. And the game definitely has its flaws, but I've honestly been really enjoying it. So I would highly recommend. If you want to get stuck in it, it's on Steam. That's where I found it. There's probably other ways to play as well, but Steam is the easiest, I'm sure. So yeah, let me know what you think of it. If you've played, or what your impressions are from just watching. And I'll see you around. Thanks, everyone.